Welcome to Elevate Your Ride, the podcast dedicated to elevating your performance in the saddle. I'm Ellie, your personal trainer.
And I'm Lauren, your mindset coach. Today, we have the pleasure of speaking with Angela Fox. She was the 2024 Congress champion in junior Western riding, level one amateur Western riding, and reserve in the amateur Western riding, as well as winning the reserve all around amateur. Angela has been a force to be reckoned with for many years and has done a great job bringing along young horses and developing their talents and skill sets. And the horse that she's riding is 100% that as well. She's brought him along from a 3 year old to now a Congress champion in all the all around events. And it's just been really fun to watch their journey. And we're excited to share with you today some of her insights on how she does that and how she is able to keep her cool and build strong, confident horses. So, congratulations on your Congress, Angela. That was so exciting.
Thank you very much. It was a fun 2 weeks.
Yeah. So, the Western riding, that's not a class that you have historically shown in. So, what inspired you to not only start doing it, but then jump in the deep end and show in the open in the junior Western riding?
Well, I love a challenge, and I have never had a Western rider before. Most of the horses that I show, I buy as 2-year-olds and develop them. And I kind of try to make a habit of letting them tell me what they want to be or what they're good at. And then we go from there. Western riding, oddly, I ride at High Point, who are arguably the kings of Western riding. Western riding's really never been on my radar. I think there's only a certain handful of horses that have even like the natural ability to get the big plussable changes. And aside from that, obviously it takes a long time to develop one. But of the horses I've had up until this point, some of them have obviously all had a lead change, but some of them have been better lead changers than others, but none of them have been, the type of horses that have the ability to get a plus 1.5 change and have the movement, between the changes to be a big player in that class. And so for me, I felt like the other horses that I had, maybe my time was better spent developing other things. And, if that came along or if I needed it for an all around on one of those other horses, I would do it. But I knew I wasn't gonna be likely the big winner on any of them, so I had never really done it before. And then when we started changing leads on this one, he was certainly not easy to teach to change leads, but from the very beginning, the actual change itself was really good quality, and we knew that it was worth pursuing. But Sonny Jason came to the Congress for a few days this year, and he said, if you weren't so stubborn, this horse maybe wouldn't have done Western riding because he was not actually very easy to teach at all. And I am stubborn, and I did see a good quality change, and so did they. So we stuck with it and decided to let him tell us that actually this is a class that he wants to do.
Yeah, he's so beautiful at it. So good for you for being able to kind of navigate that and have patience. So the quality of the change, you obviously knew it was good, but how did you mentally handle the fact that it was a struggle and a challenge? And how did you decide not to give up?
So I like to win and I like a challenge and I like to prove to myself, but I also I was thinking about it when you asked me to be on the podcast. There's this weird part of me that wants to be respected by fellow horsemen and amateurs. And I don't want to just be like an amateur or a client that gets put on a nice horse. And still, it's hard to do that too. It's still hard to get the job done, even if you're already riding a finished and broke horse. But I have this need to prove that I can do other classes or take a different horse and develop it into something good as well. And so because his quality of change was so good and, he's pretty proven in the Hunter Under saddle, and of course I'll keep showing him in it and I still think he has a lot to win in it, but long term I think this actually might be his best class. Even when he was hard to teach to do it, it wasn't like it was frying him or causing him any mental anguish or anything like that. It's just Jason and Charlie describe it as they get over the hump, and some horses get over the hump quick, and some horses take a long time, and some horses never get over the hump. And so it's basically, Angela, how long did you want to spend setting up for the lead change and not changing or doing all their exercises? And the answer is until the horse tells me it's absolutely not going to do it or doesn't want to do it or can't do it, I'm going to do it until it does it right. And so I just stuck with it. And then he got over the hump. And it did take a little longer than we thought maybe it would because he's such a good mover and it is so easy for him. But now it's like he's like a different horse. Like he 100% gets it. And now it's fun because we're getting to do all the things where you get to fine tune it and work on your pace and perfect how you come around a corner, like things before where I was just crossing my fingers to get a change. And now we're getting to work on stuff that I've never gotten to work on before.
Yeah, that's really cool. That sounds like a fun process, and once you get over the hump, that's the part that I enjoy too, is kind of fine-tuning all those little details. So that's cool to hear. Did you have to learn about the details and stuff, or did you kind of already know what you needed to be teaching him?
A little bit of both. So my favorite thing to do at horse shows and even, at home, I love to sit in the warm-up pen and watch how people do things or why they do things or, like the people who are the best at their classes fascinate me. And so I obviously, watch Jason and Charlie and Jeff and everybody ride every day. So I see a lot of how it's supposed to be done or what it's supposed to look like. But that doesn't really mean that I knew exactly what that felt like or how to get there. So I think part of it is feeling like you have some sort of an idea of how to sit up there and make it happen. But then I didn't really know much about the Western riding. Like I said, I've never had one. So I didn't really know much about those fine details. And so it's worked out really good. Like Jason comes down, you know, not he doesn't ride every day like he once did, but he comes down and he'll throw out a little tidbit that maybe, I ride with Charlie almost every day. Jason will throw something in that I'm like, okay, let me think about that. And they're really good about letting me like I can't always do everything right then and there with, everybody watching me and giving me a whole bunch of information. But if you give me the piece of information and let me be with it for a week or so and figure out like how I can tweak it for that particular horse because I know that horse so good. Or, let me think about how I need to get that done and then I can fix it, but it might just be a tick different than how they would have done it. And then they come back and say, like, okay, great, you're 90% there. Let's work on this. And so that part has been really a fun challenge and a fun learning process.
Yeah, that's really cool. And it's nice that you've got great people on your team to be able to bounce those ideas off of and really help elevate you and being. Hey, Elevate Your Ride fans. Are you loving our show and looking for a way to show your support? Check out our line of Elevate Your Ride merchandise. From stylish t shirts to cozy hoodies to journals and hats, we have everything you need to represent your favorite podcast. Ready to gear up? Click on the Buy Our Merchandise Here link in the podcast notes, or head on over to our website, elevateyourride.co, and click on the Store tab. Thank you for your support. Make sure to like, follow, and share our platform with your friends. Can you walk us through the decision for you to show in the junior Western riding class and then the day of the class and how everything went as you were going down the line and doing all your changes and what it felt like when you walked out?
Yeah. So last year, Charlie, like I said, Bean was semi difficult to teach to change leads. And so last year, Charlie showed him once or twice. I think we all agree that it was part of the process, but he wasn't quite ready to, put your hand down and show. And so he found some holes. He gave me some things to work on. But basically I ride Bean every day at home anyway. And so I like to think, I know him better than anyone does. And then Charlie rode him quite a bit last year. And then it's hard for me because I have a lot of interest in my horses. Like, I think it's fun or would be fun to have somebody show my horse in the open, but I get the most gratification out of it being work that I put in. And then I get to see the benefits of it, whether it be in the amateur or the open. And in addition to that, probably the biggest factor to me deciding or asking if they would be on board with me showing him myself is High Point slowing down and, Jason doesn't really ride anymore and he's he's around and he's always, there to help. And Charlie does ride, but they've not made a secret of the fact that at some point in the relatively near future, they may not be doing this full time anymore. And I wanted to take advantage of being able to learn their entire process. And it's not just like teaching the horse to change leads, it's developing a horse that someday could potentially end up being a senior Western rider at a high level. And I don't think you can get that full, gamut of skills if you just ride them every couple weeks or at the shows, or you weren't the one to prep them or know what it took to get them just the right amount of tired to show, all those sort of things. And so Charlie obviously was willing and happy to do it if I wanted, but I said, hey, I ride him every day anyway. I have a lot of interest in learning the process. I get along with Bean really well. And if someday I don't have them right there by my side, I want to be able to feel really confident that I could get the horse ready myself. And then hopefully on future horses know exactly what to do. And one of the things that High Point is so great about is their egos aren't so big that they don't think anyone else can do it, or that they wouldn't be willing to listen to me with that crazy idea, because I wouldn't say I'm good at Western riding even today, but I was really bad at it beginning of the year. And so, most people would have been like, are you nuts? It's a junior horse that doesn't really know the job and you could ruin it or whatever. And they're just not like that. I mean, they're so confident in their skills and they understand me and my need to and want to learn stuff like that, that they're like, yeah, Charlie literally was like, well, let's take it one show at a time. And, you show him. And if it goes good, you can keep showing him. And if you get in a bind, like in Arizona, he's like, if you get in a bind and you're like, Charlie, hop on, can you take it from here? He's like, I'll absolutely do it. And so basically after every show, Charlie and I would visit and he would say, you know what, it's going really good. Like, why would I get on? And, obviously he probably would have made it even better, but he could see that I was loving it and he could see that, we were having success, and he knew that that's ultimately what I wanted to do. So it just kept getting better. And so then we just decided, why would, go ahead and show him yourself, and with little to no expectations in the open. But so anyway, we got to the Congress, and I would say when I showed in Tulsa, which was the last time I showed, he was still pretty green and there was some mistakes and I did good, but I didn't do great. And then when we got to the Congress, it was weird. It was like everything clicked for him and me, and everyone was in the right good frame of mind, and it wasn't 6,000 degrees. And I don't know, the warm-ups just were going really good, and one of my favorite times of the year is when even when Jason was showing full time, he's got a different kind of mind than some people, and so he's always thinking, he's always tweaking, he's always making little changes, he's very smart about how he tells you things, and I loved it every year, even on my other horses when I jokingly tell him it was when he would start participating in horse shows, and it starts at Tulsa, and then he's really in and active and paying attention from Tulsa through the World Show. And it's fun because he wouldn't be there all the time, but he has a lot of really good advice and really good thoughts that are helpful. And obviously, Charlie's are awesome because I get those every day. And that's a giant part of the success. But Jason flew in to help Charlie with the senior Western riding at the Congress this year. He was there also the night before the junior Western riding. He sat in the stands and observed and didn't say much. And Charlie and I worked on the stuff in the warm up and it was going good. And then, Jason would call me over to the rail and he would say just a couple little tweaks. He said more than once, the worst thing that you can do to somebody the night before something that matters, a big class, would be to try to change their whole game plan or try to make a big change in the horse's training or the way you would ride something. He's like, I would never do that because nothing good comes from that. But he offered just a few tweaks about how to ride a corner and how to get pace. That was, I think it was pattern 8 that we did, where you do the 2 changes across the center and then the 2 changes down the line. I had never shown that pattern. So he gave me just a little bit, probably the exact same thing that Charlie was saying, just worded differently, and it clicked. And then the warm up went really good. And the next morning we went to show and Jason was there and Charlie was there, and they haven't both been there a lot recently. So I don't know, there was something like really magical about it to me. And they accidentally put the scores up of the Western riding, which they haven't been doing at the Congress. Like a few years ago, they used to put them up so you knew where you were, but they haven't been doing it. But I think it was a mistake and they had done it, but I didn't realize they had done it. So I thought I was good, but I didn't know how they scored me. And then Brados came around the corner. He's like, "What did you just do?" And I had won by several points, and everyone was really
Wow.
excited. Yeah, it was really exciting. I would say that probably my least favorite part of horse showing is the countdown at a major horse show from 10 to first, like from 10th to
Ugh, me
first. It
too.
gives me crippling anxiety. Like I absolutely hate it. And to know that and then be able to enjoy the moment was fantastic.
I can totally relate.
What an incredible feat to not only go and do really well in a class that, you said even earlier in this year, you weren't super confident in it, right?
Definitely not. So, it takes pace. There's all these things that like girls that do the horsemanship, and I know Lauren, you can attest to this. Like, I love control. I love every step dictated. I love feet buttons. Like, I love all these things that actually don't typically lend to getting a big giant plus in the Western riding on a change. And so that's like a real struggle for me. It's not the pace. It's not like the going fast part that I don't like. It's the like, I want to be able to control every step and, it's a little bit harder to do at that pace and then continue that pace through the whole thing, and so that's a challenge for me, and it can mean the difference between, a plus half change and a plus 1.5 change if you don't allow the horse to open up and allow the softness and a little bit of out of controlness, so that's been therapeutic, I guess, for me throughout the year. I'm not there yet, but I'm learning.
Yeah, but I mean, still, that's really incredible to just in a couple of months go from not feeling confident at all to then going and winning the junior Western riding at the Congress. I mean, that had to have been such an incredible feeling.
It was incredible. I mean, it was unexpected. It was I don't know, I was very nostalgic that day because both of them were there and all 3 of us had tried so hard. It was such a group effort to get him to change leads, for none of us to die in the process of teaching him to change leads, and then all the support and, it all coming together at just the right moment. Yeah, it was incredible.
Are you looking for that extra competitive edge, struggling with show pin anxiety, or looking to set and achieve meaningful goals with your horse? Schedule a session with me, Lauren, your dedicated mindset coach. As an experienced competitor, I understand the mental demands required to excel at the highest level, and am here to support you in building a plan to help you stay accountable and reaching those goals. For more information, check out laurencervelli.com or click on the website link in our show notes. Let's work together to elevate your ride. So, was that the first Western riding class of the show for you, the junior?
It was, yes. I'm sure you can understand this. It's like once you do good, now you don't want anything other than to be the winner, right? Now you know you can do it. Now you know it's in there. So then after that, you're like, well, it's not really like the pressure, but it's like you want to make sure to show your horse to the best of its ability to prepare it. Try to remember how I prepared him the time before, what worked, what didn't work, how tired was he, that sort of thing. So the second class that I showed in was the Green Junior Western Riding, which was in a different arena in the Cooper, which is much smaller. My practice maybe was even better in the Cooper. Jason was still there for that. And Charlie was winning the senior Western riding, so he couldn't come over to the practice. And so Jason walked in there and it was probably one of the best practices I've ever had. Like he was excellent. And then the next day, I would say it was my fault. Like I didn't deliver and hit the trot pole, and it was like a really ugly trot pole. Poles are very hard for me, and Dean is very nonchalant about things. Like he's a beautiful trail horse that hits every trail pole because he moves so low to the ground. He's so quiet and he's not a spook and all these things. And so it's beautiful, but it also doesn't make them very careful. And so that combined with my like inability to see a distance to a pole and panicking about this one pole in front of me, like combined at that moment. And anyway, I hit the trot pole and the Green Junior, I ended up fifth. I mean, I had a big score, like my changes were really good and I was very proud of those, but I was a little deflated after that because I knew that I could be good and likely would have been good, but I had made that mistake. So then I had to rally after that to go back into the Celeste and do the level 1 amateur Western riding. And fun fact about that, Charlie used to show and won the senior Western riding several times on I'm a Petite Classic, which was Darcy Reeves' black gelding. And it's like probably one of my all-time favorite horses and Western riders. And he had just stopped showing him or was just phasing out or retiring him right when I started riding with High Point. And so I did go to, maybe a year or two of shows with him, but Charlie always showed him in this one bit. And the only reason I remember it is because it had like the High Point logo on the side of it. And what I was telling you about Jason being like always a thinker, Bean is a funny horse. He's funny mouthed, like he's super, super soft mouth. Like he doesn't like to take a hold of the bridle. He's tricky in his face because he's so light and he's just a mouthy horse in general. So we're always trying to like find a bit that he mouths the least amount because it can be distracting and ideally they don't move their mouth at all. But he does in some capacity. So we are always trying to find things that we like better on him. And Jason, the night he and I were schooling for the green, he said, what about that bit that Charlie used to show Kramer in? And, Jason has ridden Bean some, but I was like, I don't know that I don't really know that bit. So anyway, we're looking all through the tack rooms at the Congress and all the bridle bags and we can't find it. And Charlie's like, I don't, that's a very, special bit to me. No other horse has ever used it. No other horse has ever liked it. We don't know where it's at. And anyway, when Jason gets an idea, he's going to make it happen. So he had flown home the next morning and he's digging through the client tech room at High Point and he can't find it. And he's calling Charlie and it's a whole thing. Anyway, he ends up finding it in some hanging box somewhere. He overnights it to the Congress and the bit is heavy and it looks like it would be a bit that my horse would not like. And he's like, just try it, just put him on it and see. And the damnedest thing, like that you absolutely would not think that it would work. And we put it in his mouth and I'm sappy like this. I feel like Kramer was the black horse. He was like passing the torch
Oh,
down and it was weird. I put it in Bean's mouth and it shouldn't have worked and it worked and it absolutely worked. And like Charlie was so happy. He's like, if I ever wanted another horse to have it, it would be this one. And like, I don't know, it just felt like, and Jason wasn't letting it go until we
yeah.
found that bit. And then we found the bit. And then I ended up showing the level one amateur Western riding in that bit. And I would say he was definitely better in that one than he was in the one in the junior. I ended up winning that class
Wow.
too. So kind of fun.
That is so
That's
cool.
such a cool little story.
Yeah,
Yeah. Sometimes things are meant to be, and sometimes things work like really cool things work out like that.
totally.
Hi, everyone. It's your personal trainer, Ellie. If you're looking to become a stronger, more balanced, and flexible rider, I'm here to help. I offer virtual personal training sessions and customized workout plans that you can complete on your own. As a fellow competitor, I understand the physical demands riding requires, and my goal is to help you perform your best for your horse, whether you're preparing for a show or just want to improve your everyday rides. Visit lopeanddowntherailfitness.com or click on my website tab in the notes of this podcast episode to learn more. Let's work together to elevate your ride.
Since Western riding's been a priority for you this year, are you still focusing on showing in the all around classes, the showmanship, horsemanship, ec? And how do you kind of balance the amount of time that it's taken to teach him how to do the Western riding while still being able to get enough time to practice and prepare for the other classes?
That's a good question. So I think I prioritize them in the classes that I know I can or believe that I can have the most success in and that he likes the best. So historically, that's always been the hunter under saddle for him. He loves the hunter under saddle. It's super easy for him. He's really good at it. It doesn't take a lot of prep, all that. So at Tulsa, I just did the hunter under saddle and the Western riding. It worked out. I won the non pro maturity in the hunt seat. And then, like 2 hours later, while we were ripping out braids and getting bands put in, went and won the limited junior green Western riding in the open there. And like, that's kind of unheard of this day and age because, it's so specialized and different and big hunt seat horses maybe shouldn't be super great Western riders. And Bean kind of amazes me that that's even a possibility, in general. So it worked that day in Tulsa. But I also think it's a little bit unfair. The hunter under saddle and the Western riding actually kind of can work together because Beth rides him and helps me get ready for the hunt seat, and she knows him so good, and he doesn't take very much. Plus, we get a big, long, sweepy stride, and he gets his nose out, and he's really soft and relaxed, and so it works pretty good. But at the Congress, I did give up doing the non-pro maturity in order to prepare for the junior Western riding because I wanted to be able to show banded and I wanted to be able to put like my all into preparing for it. And maybe less the horse and maybe more me mentally not being 100% certain of, the Western riding and how to prepare for it and what I needed to do and make sure that my head was in the right spot. I felt like, because I don't really feel like that about the hunt seat. I know the hunt seat and I know the horse so well in the hunt seat. Like I feel like I can hop on that pretty quick. But for the Western riding, I really wanted to put like a full effort in. So I decided not to do the non-pro maturity, which was the class directly before the junior Western riding. It was a gamble, but it ended up working out. And then I did the amateur hunt seat later in the week. It worked where we could do that. But as far as like the horsemanship and the eck and the showmanship, I mean, I'm an all around girl and those are, my favorite classes or maybe were my favorite classes. I don't know. But I love those classes. And like I said before, if a horse like Rusty Fox, the horse I had before this one, like I don't, in my opinion, it's the best horsemanship horse I will ever own and arguably like one of my all time favorite horsemanship horses. He wanted to do that class. He was perfect in the bridle for that class. That class was easy for him. It just worked. And so I focused quite a lot on that class with him. Whereas I don't think he's actually pretty good at the horsemanship and he's, a fair amount of success in it. But if I had to pick, I don't think that he would say that that would like, or he thinks that that's his favorite class. So Jeff and Charlie and I, before we went to the Congress, we sort of had a plan. And being the intense horsemanship girl that I am, that doesn't really work well with Bean. Like his personality is not intense at all. And he doesn't get amped. He just gets like more mouthy on the bridle or too bridly because like I've pulled on him too much to, snap up his turns or stop harder, that sort of thing. And so we ran through the pattern for the horsemanship at home and we sort of all came to the conclusion that I've done a very little horsemanship since I've been working on the Western riding, but it actually was, I think, good for him because he was not angry at me for overschooling the horsemanship. He was just soft and pretty and a good mover and had good turns. And we collectively decided that he actually probably is the best if you just take him for what he is and show off the good parts, like show off his beautiful gallop, show off how he can long trot and transitions and stuff like that, rather than get crazy about the turns and the stops. And so we had like a full plan on how I was going to school the horsemanship. And then we also, yeah, at the Congress, the horsemanship went the morning of the amateur Western riding. And so if I got too aggressive with him or ram jammed him around or got him, too bridally, I knew that was going to affect the amateur Western riding. And so I never even went in the pen to school the horsemanship pattern at the Congress. And I basically had to trust that I had done my work at home and that I do know the horse super well. So I knew that part I wasn't worried about, but I had to basically like go school him like this, make it happen, and just trust that it's going to rather than be how I would normally be like out there fixing the gallop to the slow for an hour, trying to make it just right. And I knew I couldn't do that. And so I schooled him very briefly. I tried not to pull on his face. I tried to keep him happy and keep his neck low and his nose out and all that. And, it's probably my first pattern in the horsemanship was probably one of the best horsemanship patterns I've had on him in a year. And I made the finals. And my second pattern was almost as good, not quite as good, but I would say pretty darn close. And ended up sixth out of 100 or something in the amateur horsemanship. And I think that's basically all I could ask for him. He was as good as he could possibly have been trying to get all that done in the same day.
Absolutely. And I think that that's really incredible. And it's just a really big testament to the bond that you have with him and just all the time that you've put in developing him as a horse and your guys' partnership. So that way, when you could have to put together a pattern, you didn't necessarily need to cram it because you guys just know each other so well and you could just make it happen.
Yeah, I mean, it worked that day. That doesn't always work, but I will say, like, when you were asking me, like, the mental part of this or, like, it's so easy to, like, get in your own head and maybe second guess. There's a million things that can go wrong in every class, and Dan Yeager and I are really good friends, and we often give each other pep talks and stuff, but, like, I'll tell him, like, "Okay, you have 24 hours to pine over this the way that you're doing, and then we're done with it. Like, you need to get it out of your head, and you need to figure out how you're gonna make it happen, because if you allow yourself to go to that place, like, then you're stuck there, and then you can't make it happen when you need to." It's so funny because we all do it, but what I love about Dan, and it worked for him this year at the Congress as well, is, like, he'll do it, he'll do it, he'll do it, and then when we call each other out or when we say, okay, we're putting that to bed and now we're done talking about it. Like we're going to figure out how we're going to do it. He's so capable of doing that. And I think it's really cool that, that we can have that kind of relationship that feeds off of each other. And we know when we need to listen to it from the other one, but then we also know, okay, we need to call it and we need to figure out like what's going to actually make it happen this time.
Yeah, absolutely. It's great to have a friend like that. And like you said, he ended up winning a Congress championship as well in the trail, which was so cool. Was happy to see that for
Yeah,
him.
very cool.
Yeah. So how does your mindset feel for the World Show? Have you been changing your prep at all, or are you kind of just going to try to repeat everything that you put together?
So it all happened so fast because, the horses are leaving. Well, some of the horses left yesterday and some of the horses are leaving tomorrow. Bean's leaving tomorrow. That there wasn't really any time in the middle to come home and like school for things. And I have felt like, I mean, he could not have acted or been any better at the horse show in Ohio than he was. And he deserved a few days off. So he got turned out and, he was bucking on the way to the arena today. So that's always comforting when you're about to go to the horse show and he's fresh again.
Horses.
Yeah, he doesn't take much to knock down, but it's still, I'm like, oh, you want to like keep him ridden and all of that. Like I said, I do know him really well, so I know what it will take to get him back down. But the ground is different in Oklahoma City than it is in Columbus, and so well, it was at the Redbud, it was deeper, and so he doesn't love deep, heavy dirt like that. So it's going to mean I need more pace. I've been trying to think of things like, okay, it's not going to feel exactly the same as it did in Ohio, so you have to be able to brush those things off, pretty quick. I know what they are, or I think I know the majority of what they are. But I think the game plan for the schedule does not lend very well to me. Like it goes the amateur hunter under saddle finals to the junior Western riding, or maybe it's the amateur Western riding finals of the very next class. I mean, it's going to be very challenging and I'm just going to have to suck it up and figure out how to make it happen. The game plan is essentially the same. My focus will be on the Western riding and then the hunt seat. And then I didn't do the showmanship at the Congress, but I am going to do it at the World Show and the horsemanship and maybe the equitation, depending on how the horse show is going, because it's at the end. But, a pet being, keep him happy. But hopefully getting over the hump and feeling more confident and understanding how to present him better in the Western riding will continue to carry over in Oklahoma City.
So, something that I notice as you are talking is you seem to have a very well laid out plan about everything, how you're going to practice at home, how you're going to prep for the shows, how your practice is going to go at the shows. How did you determine that you needed that detailed of a plan? And how do you create those plans? And I would imagine that that's a really big reason why you're so successful in the pen is because you do such a good job of laying out exactly how everything's going to go. And you probably have an A plan, a B plan, a C plan, and all the things.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's true. As you were saying that, I remember years ago I used to ride with John and Jill Briggs, and I do love the showmanship, and I had a really good showmanship horse, and he would make us, or they would make us, write down, say, like on a piece of cardboard in our halter bags, and put down like say you have to stop with your hip to the judge in the showmanship, and he would say, with this horse, I had a big horse at the time, how many steps do you count with this horse, and what did you school in? Or how did you school him the night before a big win or a great pattern, even if it was at a weekend horse show, write that stuff down so you can remember it. And it doesn't always, I mean, you're dealing with an animal, it doesn't always work that way the next day, but it really taught me something like it's not by chance. Like if something worked that time, you should certainly try it again the next time. And you may have to tweak it or it may never work again, but it gives you some rather than like your head going everywhere, going, I don't know if I should lunge again. I don't know if I should, if he's too fresh or if I should show him fresh, like all those things. I think that's just like noise in your head. And then it doesn't allow you to focus on what your job actually is and showing your horse and getting the biggest score that you can get. So if you can eliminate even small parts of things that could take up mind space, I think over the years I've really learned that that actually is incredibly helpful. And then it takes out some of the guesswork. It takes out some of the stress. It makes your horse trainers less stressed. Me just saying it out loud, like, hey, when we were practicing the horsemanship before the Congress, I told Jeff, I was like, I just kind of feel like this is how I need to ride him. And then Jeff and I had visited about it, and then Charlie had come out later and we had visited about it as well. But like then it was all three of us sort of knew, hey, we're not going to try to make these like giant plusable spins. Like he's a slow-legged horse. He doesn't spin, I mean, he spins correctly, but he doesn't spin super fast. So we're not going to waste our time making him mad, begging up his feet and, whatever on a turn that may or may not work out anyway. We're going to accept the one that we have and then we're going to, try to get the pluses in the big other spots. And it actually was really, really helpful. And especially at the Congress trying to navigate between classes that are so different from each other, it certainly was, I think, a big part of the success. It's also hard when you get there and, maybe it's cold one day and hot the next day and your plan is derailed or you waited in the lunging line for an hour. All the things you have to be able to at the last minute adjust. But when I go, the only thing that I'm there for is to prepare my horse as well as I can and hopefully, have success because of that. So like I'm not worried about going out to dinner. I'm not worried about what other people are doing. I'll get up as early as I have to, all those things. And so like I can dedicate as much time as it's needed to hopefully follow the steps that we've planned or loosely follow the steps that we've planned along the way.
So, since you've been focusing on the Western riding so much lately, have you noticed that it's changed or maybe improved any of your other classes as well?
Well, obviously, having a lead change that is now easy for the horsemanship is helpful because sometimes when it's just the one lead change in a pattern and you dwell on it and focus on it, it's almost more detrimental than it should be because now you've put so much stock in that. So now I've done, 1 million lead changes in the last year. And now just to go and do it in a horsemanship pattern, obviously, I still have to think about it and set them up and all of that. But that certainly has, made it easier. And then, like, in the equitation, he's capable of getting a big plus in a change. So maybe I can't sit the trot as pretty as I once did, but I know I can make up for that in another section where I've got this big, pretty gallop and I can change a big, pretty change that's soft, all that. So yeah, I mean, I think that it ups that part of the classes. Plus, I don't think he's the kind of horse that the more intense, if I were to get more intense about, because I've done it both ways with him and now it's been proven, the more intense I get with the horsemanship or the equitation, it doesn't make him better. It just makes him resentful of it. So like he knows all the parts. I've done all of that work. I mean, he knows how to do all the things. So it's just how do I keep him the happiest and get the most pluses I can, but keep myself in check, realizing that he's never going to spin like a little Western horse that takes tiny strides, that thinks fast. Like that's just not who he is. And so it's helped me like divert my attention a little bit so that I'm worrying about something else. Where then at the Congress, I couldn't worry about anything else. So I was like, well, I'm just going to go and do the best I can on the horsemanship. And it honestly worked out probably better than it would have if I had done it the other way.
Thank you for listening to Elevate Your Ride. Find us on Instagram and Facebook, all linked in the podcast notes. We'll see you next time. The information provided by Elevate Your Ride is for educational and informational purposes only and is not intended as medical or professional advice. While we discuss health and fitness topics related to equestrians, the content provided through this podcast is not a substitute for professional advice. The views expressed by the host and guests on Elevate Your Ride are their own and should not be taken as professional guidance. We strive to provide accurate and up-to-date information, but we cannot guarantee that the information will be applicable to every individual listener or that it reflects the most current research or guidelines. Before making any changes to your health and fitness routine, we strongly recommend consulting with a qualified professional who can provide personalized advice based on your individual needs and circumstances. Elevate Your Ride and its creators will not be liable for any direct, indirect, consequential, special, exemplary, or other damages arising from the use of information on this podcast. Thank you for listening to Elevate Your Ride. We are committed to providing high quality content and appreciate your trust in us as a source of information for your health and fitness journey.